Summer 2021 sucks. It's hot, my sleep schedule is fucked, I'm extra lazy, and above all else, there isn't that much to watch. Out of the 17 shows that I'm watching, 7 of them are from previous seasons, which leaves me about 10 shows from this season to keep up with, and out of those 10, I only really enjoyed 5 or so. 2 of which are sequels, and this isn't even including the shows that I dropped out of disappointment. Overall, I'd say the season is definitely the weakest out of all of the ones we've had so far this year. There are still a few good shows though, so we should start with the obvious. Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid is back again, and it's better than ever. Its animation was already great in the first season, but they really upped the ante this time around, making characters a lot more energetic and dynamic. Plus, they also introduced a character that has a lot of potential for a good overarching story arc, which is an improvement over the first season. It was a great watch before, and it's even better now. My Next Life as a Villainess is also back with the second season, and I think it's entertaining as hell. I found its first 2 episodes to be pretty damn funny, and the characters are still the lovable goofs we came to love in the first season. The only problem that I kind of have with this season is that it's missing the central hook of the show now that Katarina has already avoided all of her doom flags, which I can see being a problem in the future, but for right now, it's still really entertaining. Now we move on to the new shows, like Remake Our Life. The show is, alright so far. It's not bad, but it's not amazing. It's just kind of there. It's lost some of its shine due to other shows doing what it's done first, but even when taking that into consideration compared to shows like Erased or Real Life, there's just something about it that seems boring. For example, Satoru had to deal with a serial kidnapper/murderer as well as a framing for someone he was close to, and in Real Life, instead of going back in time to fix his mistakes he regrets making, the main character has to move past them and rehabilitate his current self, whereas Remake Our Life doesn't do anything too special with its core premise, at least so far. It's only been like 3 episodes. Again, it doesn't do anything bad, and I can see why people are enjoying it, it's just a bit too plain for me. And then everybody clapped. Battle Game in 5 Seconds is a show that I thought had an interesting premise, but its first episode wasn't impressive. Its premise is in its title. After 5 seconds of meeting, combatants fight each other. Its animation is kind of competent. It looks really sluggish at times, but it's fine, I guess. It has a main character that's not good at being a smart character, even though he's meant to. He predicted that a person who jumps a lot would jump, and he cleverly shot someone with a cannon. Real impressive, I guess. I thought the second episode was a lot better, but that's not saying much since the first episode didn't give me much to work with. But even after watching the second episode, this anime still strikes me as a really generic death game. For example, we have another fucking asshole who turns out to be a rapist who tries to do something to the main heroine. I don't know why this is such a common trope. There are other ways to establish a character as a messed up person, but whatever. Our next show on the list is How a Realist Hero Rebuilt the Kingdom, and I actually really like it. I always enjoy when an isekai dives into the state of affairs of their world. As I said, this is an isekai, but the protagonist is trying to rebuild the kingdom that he was summoned to through politics and paperwork. On a visual level, the show isn't anything special, but the subject matter of a lot of the dialogue is really interesting. It presents problems that are simple to understand but complicated in nature, and the solutions that Soma comes up with actually make sense in response to those problems and are pretty clever. It reminds me of the best aspects of Log Horizon, but without any of the mundane and boring portions of the show. Whenever Log Horizon would step away from politics and become a more action, adventure-driven show, it felt really generic and incredibly stale. So hopefully How a Realist Hero Rebuilt the Kingdom doesn't do that. Next, the Aquatope on the White Sand has a lot of potential. It's visually stunning, the characters are likable, and I get the sense that a lot of care went into the production of this anime, but right now it's just a bit of a slow burner. While I think it's nice, the first 2 episodes were pretty uneventful, which hopefully gets better soon. You know what? This is actually pretty good. One of my personal favorites from this season, if I'm being honest. The Duke of Death and his Maid was a genuine surprise to me, as its premise just sounded like a really bad excuse to show, well, anything. But thankfully, it was a lot more restrained than I thought it would be, and it also came off as genuinely heartwarming and wholesome. It's about a boy who was cursed by a witch, doomed to kill anybody who touched him. He lives with his maid and butler, and his maid loves to tease him. When seeing a premise like that, I was thinking that it would go more for a comedy than a drama, and there are comedic elements to it, but the main character's struggle is actually pretty damn moving, and they take time to establish the more serious elements in the story. Supporting the strong concept for the show are fun and likable characters who all bounce off of each other really well. There are only 3 episodes out right now, but it's a really enjoyable watch. Haha, funny meme. Haha, Tante wa mo shinderu. Oh wait, it's shit. My thought process when seeing this for the first time was saw the premise, thought it looked interesting, saw the word detective and thought it could be fun, and I came in severely disappointed. This show is about a detective who is already dead, and the main character runs into a girl who kind of resembles her. Now, this show looks amazing. The first episode has a fight scene that looks absolutely stunning, the animation is great, the sense of aesthetic in general is great, the character designs are appealing, and it sounds nice too, but if you take away all of the superficial elements, there's really nothing here. The writing is all over the place. The pacing has the same issue. The first episode was fine, I guess. I don't even know what to think of it really, but the episode where it became apparent that I would not like the show was the second one. Since it had a painfully ham-fisted, cheesy, dumb fucking plot twist that was also really predictable at the same time, this twist felt so unearned and forced, and I know it was foreshadowed earlier on in the episode with the stupid fucking hugging scene and some other shit, but there's a difference between clever foreshadowing and foreshadowing for the sake of being clever. If it's way too obvious that something happening is going to come back later on, then it's not good foreshadowing. It's a lazy and cheap way of making things seem like they've come full circle. Oh, she kicked that guy for no reason. Wonder why she did that. Oh shit, they hugged for some reason and then they brought it back up again. It's not hard to find out what's going on with her after the show has already established that she's had a heart transplant and that her new heart is starting to affect her emotions and feelings. So all you really have to think to yourself is, I wonder if the heart inside the girl's body is the same heart as the really important character who just died off screen for no reason. That's another thing too, you don't really get enough time to get attached to Siesta's character, and on top of that you don't even see the moment of her death, utterly destroying any potential emotional weight this reveal ever had. On top of that, the dialogue in this anime is really weird. Like, you can tell that the writer tried to make the banter between characters kind of witty and fun, but it just comes off as confusing, since the characters will respond to each other without actually responding to each other from time to time. They'll just say things that don't make sense as a response to what other people say, just to move the conversations along. I could rant about the millions of ways this show disappointed me for hours, like how Siesta is a bad detective character, even though that's all her character is supposed to be, and I should probably drop it, but the third episode was kind of funny, so I'll keep watching. Next up is the case study of Vanitas, which is one that I haven't caught up on yet, but the first episode impressed me. I don't really have much to say about this one since I haven't seen much of it, so it looks really good. I like the dynamic between the two main characters, the fight choreography was pretty cool, and I thought the premise was awesome too. Vampires, futuristic technology, and a fun duo to boot, and this show is right up your alley. Another premise that I thought was really cool was Boy Riverside, but I ended up dropping it since its first episode was handled pretty sloppily. In terms of its direction and use of storytelling techniques, it just seemed like an average show to me. I can't really explain this, but I always get kind of mad when a show overly relies on fade-outs to transition to something. Maybe it's because I see it as a really lazy way to move from one scene to another. I don't know. I don't think it's always a bad thing. When used in the right situation, it can be quite effective, but it's when the show uses this for no reason at all that makes me go, ugh. Ooh, what was I talking about? Oh, right. Next. Girlfriend is a show that's about a guy who's too horny to have one girlfriend, so he chooses to have two, and he doesn't even try to hide it from his first partner. I thought that the first episode of the show was funny, but the second one bored me to tears. After coming back for the second episode, I realized just how cringy and annoying the main character really is. It's not even so much what he does, it's just how he talks. Something about his constant pausing and what he says in general is really off-putting. Plus, I just found the show to be a really cringy watch, so I dropped it. Mother of the Goddesses Dormitory is another show that I dropped because it's not my kind of show. It's really trashy and full of fan service, and I don't have the patience that I used to, so I couldn't even sit through the entirety of the first episode. What's next? Scarlet Nexus? It's a fucking video game adaptation. What else do I have to say? Oh, Sunny Boy. Sunny Boy is a top recommendation for this season. Make this one a priority. Everything about the first episode is just perfect, from the incredibly fresh and original premise to the way it establishes its themes and messages. The two main characters are interesting and make me curious enough to find out more about them. And if you have eyes, I don't really have to mention this, but look at how cool this looks. As far as I'm concerned, Sunny Boy's sense of aesthetic and production value alone is reason enough to give this a watch. There isn't a single frame in the first episode that doesn't have dynamic and interesting camera work or visuals, and every character is always animated with such energy and movement that no scene feels devoid of life, which is weird considering the first episode takes place in a high school surrounded by an empty dark void in the middle of nowhere. The way the plot moves and characters interact with each other is especially appealing to me, since it never feels like the anime is wasting time or dragging on. I don't exactly know what I watched in the first episode, but I'm sure as hell glad that I watched it. The second episode wasn't as good.
とにかく今はこの状況を何とかしないと
He just fucking flew in and didn't say anything. But it was still pretty impressive. If you have time, put this on your watch list. fuck me, this season is really dry, though there are a few gems that are way more disappointments, but that's fine. At least now I can catch up on shows that I may have missed, so there's a silver lining. I'll be going now.